And I'm delighted to welcome Doris to you.
Hello, everyone. I think there are a few more people just coming in, are they? Yeah. Oh. So, should I start? I can't hear you, Simon. You've gone mute.
Yes, please do. Sorry, everyone's out
Okay.
of the waiting room, and I'll let people in as they
You
come.
let people in. Okay, hello, everyone. Lovely to see you, and it's lovely to have you back. And yes, let's celebrate Ruskin this afternoon. I have prepared a PowerPoint, which I think is now accessible through the website. You found a way, Simon, didn't you? So if you wanted to have the PowerPoint, for whatever reason, you should be able to download it. It's a bit big because it has a video in it, and so it makes it kind of a bit slow and cumbersome. I shall share screen and start off with quoting Ruskin because what I based today's session on is chunks of letter two. There we are. Good. And letter two. So I'm just going to get back to the beginning. Letter two is very much about outdoor drawing. Continue to share this PowerPoint window using share play. What does that mean? Just continue to share, I think, just in case. If it blows up, we'll know, won't we? Anyway, okay, so I quote this instinct of the eye, and it's actually a quotation from letter two. I can't give you the exact paragraph number now because I failed to do my referencing, so forgive me. But I thought that's a lovely phrase to use. And letter two is very much about picking up, in some ways, exactly where I left off when I did my first session, which is preparing us to go outside and draw from outside nature and to lose all the comfort and the falseness of the studio and to actually learn to draw from the real thing, a tree in a real landscape, for instance. And this particular letter two covers pet topics of Ruskin, which would be trees, of course, in the landscape, water, clouds, etc., etc. So in letter two, he talks about how we have to change how we draw and look when we're in the landscape. And the transition from the studio base, where we basically have a still life approach, is very different from working directly from the landscape. It's a large step to take. And in order to actually manage this, we have to rely much more on our visual memory. I will explain this a little bit more via Ruskin, really, but I suppose we have to rely more on memory because we can't fix the object in that determined way, which you can do in the studio. So to paraphrase Ruskin, clouds will not stand still and water will not stop flowing and leaves will be abundant and reflect sunlight and be cast into shade within seconds. So everything constantly moves when you're outside. It may just be the wind, it may be because it's moving itself, like water down a river or the tides coming in, or clouds tend to also move quite quickly. And looking at plants, they will shake and there'll be shadows appearing, and then the sun goes behind a cloud and the shadows disappear. So we have a constant situation of change. And what we need to learn when we are in the outside is we have to learn to grasp the essential, really. For some reason, it won't let me return. Come on. Here. Right. So it's structured, letter two is structured around the following themes. It's well worth reading the whole thing. There are sections in there which I have left out because I didn't really feel they were conducive for this particular workshop. But it is structured around looking at trees, mountains, clouds, and waves, and looking for the essential chief or leading lines within those. So I will cover trees and mountains and touch on reflections in water, but I will not deal with clouds today because I think that's, in a way, it just would get a little bit too much for today. And also, I noticed that in letter three, he actually spends quite a lot of time looking at color and cloud, and I think it would actually make a really lovely workshop in itself. So maybe I invite myself, Simon, to maybe run one of those, or maybe someone else who is good with clouds will want to run this. It would be really nice to do this as a separate workshop, I think. So to just quote a little bit from Ruskin about leading lines and vital truths, he's saying, "No, remember, nothing distinguishes great men from inferior men more than they're always, whether in life or in art, knowing the way things are going. Your dunce thinks that they're standing still and draws them all fixed. Your wise man sees a change or changing in them and draws them so. The animal in its motion, the tree in its growth, the cloud in its course, the mountain in its wearing away, weary wearing away. Try always, whenever you look at the form, to see the lines in it which have had power over its past fate and will have power over its futurity." I think that's rather lovely, that sentence. The idea that when we look at something that we actually see its history in it, a little bit how we look at an maybe elderly person and we can see in the posture a whole lifetime. So Ruskin says really about trees or flowers or other things he asks us to look at, to think about the mountains, in particular mountains wearing away, how the shape of a mountain says something about its geological past, and we get a sense of direction for the future as well. So here is an example by Ruskin of a tree in its habit, and it's just quite a good example for showing elements of this, of the journey of life of this plant, because don't know whether you notice this, but they're all tilting slightly to the left, and the one which is tilting most to the left is the one where we only see the stem, which says something about prevailing wind, which we often get that in coastal areas, where you have trees in coastal areas. They will be bending away from the prevailing wind to kind of stay standing, really, to create a resistance so they're not getting blown over. So that's one thing we can read from these trees, are relatively young looking pine trees, their habit, oops, lost it, and the texture and the needles, the pine needles, which are obviously tiny, and how does he deal with the quantity of information? And typically he uses line and wash. So when he talks about essential lines, I don't think he always just means line in a literal sense. I think he means what is the sort of vital shape within a tree, which you can see quite well in this one. So just a little bit more from letter 2. The chief lines always expressive of the past history and present action of the thing he's saying. They show in a mountain, first, how it was built or heaped up, and secondly, how it is now being worn away, and from what quarter the wildest storms strike it. In a tree, they show what kind of fortune it has had to endure from its childhood, how troublesome trees have come in its way and pushed it aside and tried to strangle or starve it, where and when kind trees have sheltered it and grown up lovingly together with it, bending as it bent, what winds torment it most, what boughs of it behave best and bear most fruit, and so on. In a wave or cloud, these leading lines show the run of the tide and of the wind, and the sort of change which the water or vapor is at any moment enduring in its form, as it meets shore or counter wave or melting sunshine. That's just so Ruskin, in particular, how he kind of makes it a social parable, like good and kind trees looking after each other. It's very, very Ruskin. It's like strawberry and wildness, which he loved. So he's encouraging us also to work from photos, and that might come as a little bit of a surprise to you. I'm not sure whether it does, but I still use a version of Ruskin's Elements of Drawing, where the editor deliberately edited out all references to photos Ruskin made because the editor thought that was out of date, and he didn't agree with Ruskin on using photos. And as a result of that, you end up with myth making about Ruskin, i.e., Ruskin doesn't like you to work from photographs, which I firmly believed until I read the full Elements of Drawing and realized that he was actually very keen on students or participants or learners, whatever you want to call themselves, to work from photos. So he's saying, take a small and simple photograph, allow yourself half an hour to express its subject with a pen only, using some permanent liquid color instead of ink, outlining its buildings or trees firmly and laying in the deeper shadows. Practice in this way from one photograph, allowing yourself sometimes only a quarter of an hour for the whole thing, sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 or 3 hours. In each case, drawing the whole subject in full depth of light and shade, but with such degree of finish in the parts as it is possible in the given time. And that's another thing I found very interesting, that he advocates speeding up, having actually timings, which is something which is very much used in contemporary art school teaching for life drawing in particular. And generally, life drawing, like from the human body, is usually started off with a warm-up pose, and then it depends very much on the tutor how long your poses will be. So he's then saying when your time is short or the subject is so rich in detail that you feel you cannot complete it intelligibly in light and shade, make a hasty study of the effect and give the rest of the time to a Düreresque expression of the details. If the subject seems to you interesting and there are points about it which you cannot understand, try to get 5 spare minutes to go close up to it and make a nearer memorandum. So here we have this thing about hasty studies. One might think Ruskin isn't up for that, but he is. It's part of teaching and learning. So when you haven't got time for careful study in a Düreresque detailed style, sketch out the outline with pencil, then dash in the shadows with a brush boldly, trying to do as much as you possibly can at once, and to get a habit of expedition and decision. It is most useful as a safeguard against any too servile or slow habits which the minute copying may induce in you. I think that's very interesting, that sentence. It is perfectly safe for you to study occasionally for speed and decision while your continual course of practice is such as to ensure you retaining an accurate judgment and a tender touch. Okay, so now I've given you a choice what you want to work from. If you prefer to work from real three-dimensional objects, you might want to, oops, don't know why it keeps on doing this. You might want to place your, I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and show you my samples. I've brought a little tree in. I don't know if you can see that it's a so-called money tree. So if I'd be a person who prefers to work from a real thing, then that could be my tree. It has a bit of a stem and it has a bit of a habit and has lots of futurity ahead of it, I think, because it's a young fellow. And I've also brought sort of Giotto-esque pine broccolis, which you could use instead if you wanted to, if you have stuff like that in your freezer or fridge rather. If you don't mind working from photos, hopefully you've brought your own photos along to work from, but if you haven't, you can work from my photos. So I'll bring you back to the PowerPoint now. Okay, so whatever you're working from, we will do a 1 minute pose, a 3 minute pose, and a 5 minute pose. So I'm going to help you. You are set up for this because I'm going to start off the timings in a minute with my own images. And I will try and draw along with you while I'm trying to keep in charge of the timing at the same time, which is challenging. 1 minute, off we go from now. I think I'll stop it here. I've lost count a bit, I'm afraid. We have a 3-minute exercise now. It's a bit more complex. I'm going to try and get a proper accurate clock. He often talks about putting an essential line in with a pen and then putting the washes in quite quickly. So that might be quite a nice thing to try out in one of these timed exercises to see what happens if you use a wash of ink or watercolor, whatever you prefer. Right, that's 3 minutes over. I think it was a bit on the generous side anyway, but rather that way than the other way. And then the final one I've got in this particular section is a 5-minute one. And I suggest that I will tell you 1 minute left when we come to minute 4, which is quite helpful, I think, if you want to finish something off and you realize you've only got a little bit of time left. So this is basically the whole scene now. So you've got the advantage that you already know the trees a little bit. And I suggest that you might want to have a go at the farm building too in 5 minutes from now. A minute left. That should be pretty much 5 minutes, plus minus. I haven't set an alarm, so it's not 100% accurate. Um, Sorry, yes, I can keep it up. So interesting to see what you've come up with. Maybe at the end of the session we can have a look. Um, of course, we're not out in the wild winds, and it's in that sense still a bit of a false security blanket to work from a photo. But a nice transitional step can be to sit in a car and sketch from a car window, so you've got the protection from the elements. But you're in within that environment you're drawing and selecting from the multitude of data which you have available when you are drawing in a real landscape environment, which is part of the problem really, because there's so much information. Which one do you select? And the photo in some ways already pre-selects some of this compositionally for us, doesn't it? So it's sort of a stepping stone, definitely. So this is some sketch I did from a moving train, which kind of goes in a similar direction. I kind of like that challenge of working from a train window, because you're not in charge of the timings. You know, if you're lucky, it pulls in at a station and there's a really nice view from the station. You might get a couple of minutes where it stands still, but mostly you're at the mercy of the timetable and the train driver in terms of, you know, having to rely on your memory. You see something beautiful like a big mountain in West Cumbria, or in the Hargills. I often find that coming past on the way to Glasgow, you see these beautiful big mountains, and they're just. I always have a sketchbook when I go on the train to Glasgow, and I wait for that moment when you see the 5 minutes Hargill experience, and the change, of course, the perspective changes as we go along in the train. And so you have to rely on your memory to sort of, if you want some sort of accuracy in terms of shapes, you'll have to rely on a memory in your head, which you're then actually drawing while you're moving into already different terrain. So I tend to use ink, often fountain pen ink, and water, watered down ink as a wash. And sometimes I use water soluble ink, which makes things bleed, and sometimes I deliberately don't do that, like in this one. So the ink line stays dominant. This was quite a recent experience when I went on the beautiful train line from Barrow and Furness up to Carlisle. I didn't go all the way up to Carlisle. I stopped in St. Bees, but if you know that area, you will probably know what I mean. I'm mindful that I know that many people who are participating here are from very different parts, even of the world, so that might not mean anything, but you probably have your own mountain ranges you like. You could try this out with. Maybe it would work as a pedestrian, sitting as a kind of co-driver, maybe in a car. I don't know. I've never tried to draw from a car, but this is a very quick sketch I did on that last journey I made to West Cumbria, just using ink and watercolor. And I've shot a little video for us now for you to have that train experience of West Cumbria. We're roughly at the Milham Hills length, and I'm going to play it once. And if you guys are saying you would quite like me to play it again, then we can do that. So you get the hang of. Don't know whether you've tried this before. If you have tried it before, it might not be such a challenge. But if this is your first time drawing from a moving image, then you might want to have a repeat of the video. You could, of course, draw from any video at home, from a DVD player, from your screen, and you have the added advantage if you do that, that you can press the stop hold button and you can actually give yourself a few 1 minute or 2 minute poses, which we won't do on this occasion. I'm going to start this off now. I hope you've got something ready to draw on. I'm cutting the train noise out. Here we are. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and just take stock with where you are and whether you wanted a repeat of this video maybe, or how you feel about it, or does anyone want to show anything they've done so far? Share or who's going to be brave? Show scribbles. Wonderful. That's great. Lovely. Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else? Oh, Paul, lovely. The essential lines, I can really see you both getting those, aren't you? Isn't that beautiful? It almost looks like a Chinese ink drawing, doesn't it? Great. Anyone else?
Claire and Helen are both showing things.
How do you feel about moving train drawing? Oh, wonderful. B. Quinley. Can you hold it a bit closer to the camera? Yeah. It's very gentle. Thank you. Lovely. So I don't know how you feel. You're all on mute, of course. How do you feel about the train exercise? Was that a shock to the system? Would you like to have another go?
One person in the chat has said,
People are
repeat,
nodding.
please.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go back onto sharing screen. Oh, hang on, there's someone in the chat. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, he says, repeat, please.
Repeat, please. Okay, we'll do that. How many more times do you want me to repeat it? We'll try once more for now, and then we take stock, shall we? Oops, too far. And here we are. How do you feel? Is that enough, or do you want a third go, anyone? Because I can't see you at the moment, so you have to unmute and shout, I think, if you want one more. Otherwise, I'd say we'll call it a day with this experience. Let me just put my sketchbook down. Stop sharing PowerPoint. See what people are saying. How to get right. Sorry, getting a bit rusty on the old sharing and not sharing. Does anyone want to show anything, or is that too scary?
I will.
Claire, yeah.
Wow, amazing.
I was thinking about how whether you're
Very
trying to,
nice.
whether you're trying to
Can't
work
hear
on.
you, Claire.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? No.
Maybe you've been muted from above, have you?
I I can hear.
It's
Oh,
interesting
it's
whether
me
you,
having pushed the. Sorry, my fault. I had the sound off because of the train.
it's interesting whether you're trying to work on that one small picture space or whether you're trying to work across. So you're just trying to capture. It's really tricky, but
It is
it's a
tricky.
good one to try.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I enjoyed it.
probably better in a real train. Do you want to show us? Sorry, it says Quinley Bees, that lady.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I ended up kind of, drawing from memory for a part of it, but I tried to capture the movement of the mountains and the greenery as I was sketching.
Yeah, the colors are so bold, aren't they, on those trees and those mountains. You've got that the black patches on the top, and then you've got the kind of green fields underneath, don't you? It's quite striking. Thank you. So how do people feel? Would they like any more of this, or have you had enough?
Paul is showing.
Oh, love it. Oh, wow.
I
That's really energetic. And you got the tree in there, didn't you?
yeah, yes. The trees come in at the very beginning of the video. I started with that, but they were gone as soon as my brush touched the paper. But I think it's a superb exercise. It doesn't matter how inaccurate you are. Like in the end, you end up doing traditional pictorial things like putting in something at the bottom, which that's kind of stimulated by the wall, which is a grayish, the stone
Mm,
wall. But it's sort of an attempt to sort of foreground it somehow. So in the end, there is that move into, you know,
yeah, that's good. I'm glad you found it so positive. There are
uh,
some lovely nature programs. If you're based in Britain, I don't know, you can get BBC in France, don't you, Paul?
no, not really. I don't. I listen to very little stuff out of France. Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying it really mainly because there's this beautiful one. I think I put a link into the comments, into the note bit of the PowerPoint. There's a hyperlink which would take you to iPlayer for those of you who get
Oh,
iPlayer.
I play.
And it's an hour of the dawn chorus, and it's just very slow. It's filmed sort of at dawn to dusk kind of time, probably dawn because I think it's getting lighter at the end of the thing. And you hear all these beautiful birds singing, and you get lots of images of tree branches and birds' shapes in silhouette. So that's if you are downloading the PowerPoint, you should be able to get that link for those of you who are based in Britain at least, provided you've got a license. So I mean, whatever you might have your own videos, or you might want to choose moving image from one of your own choice videos to try this art further. Maybe? All right. Okay, well, I shall go back to sharing PowerPoint and move on to the next section. It's just an example of Ruskin. Ruskin's drawing. It's clearly a drawing where he has spent a lot more time than we have just spent with the mountain range. There's a fair amount of detail in there. It's still worth looking at Ruskin, how he deals with kind of essential lines, and he doesn't sketch absolutely everything in. I mean, he's not like Turner. Turner brings things right to the point. You can't reduce it any further. Ruskin is different in that sense. There's still a lot of detail here, but you can see he kind of focuses on key points like the central kind of farm buildings. And I'm trying to get a bit of an arrow or something, but I don't seem to be able to show you where I mean. In the center of the image, you see sort of a few farm buildings which are fairly detailed. But then if you go towards the right of the drawing, they sort of start bleaching out. You see the roof line, but they're not very firmly anchored into the ground anymore. So he kind of lets go of the detail. And he was so fascinated by mountains, as anyone who's read Ruskin knows. I mean, his fascination for geology and the way mountains show a lot of the past and how they get eroded by wind and weather, and how there is a sort of kind of pattern to that almost with mountains. He once famously said, I think in the Elements of Drawing, when we're drawing stones, that once you can draw a stone properly, you can draw everything, which is perhaps a little exaggerated, but I can see the jump from stone, geological specimen, to mountain quite clearly in a drawing like this. So he's also saying in letter to Reflections on Water, if you look at reflections in water, take account of whether the weather is calm, because then there will be little distortion and you end up with a mirror image. So I'll give you an example of that. I've shot that from our local river on a very quiet day in early autumn or mid-autumn actually. And you can see that there is not a single little wave or no kind of disturbance of the water surface. It's a perfect mirror image. Now, in letter 2, he gives this exercise option that you use a mirror, a flat mirror. And I was going to make it part of this session, but I actually found it quite difficult to install and show at the same time on the PowerPoint. So I leave that to you to try out in your own time, unless you've got it all handy and want to try it now. What you need is a mirror and then some sort of specimen you can drape over it, maybe via a vase or something like a branch. So you get the reflection of the branch in the mirror, and then you draw from the mirror rather than from the specimen. And that's quite a fascinating thing to do. I've tried it with a wing mirror in the car once, and it actually made it easier to make sense of an entanglement, because I think what happens, everything gets compressed in the mirror in a way that it's a bit like a photo, which is not always what we want, but in terms of simplifying what we're drawing, it can be helpful. Oops. So these reflection exercises you might want to try out on your own, or if you happen to have these things handy, you're welcome to install this now and just to draw from the mirror. So I actually did try and install something like that. You can see I've got a pot plant which hasn't been potted out yet, so I can observe all its roots in the glass. And I made it so stand really close to the flat mirror so its leaves would actually be shown as if they were overhanging a river. And then the thing would be to draw from that for a few minutes if you wanted to. Don't know whether anyone would like to do this as an exercise now, or whether you want to save it for home.
There's some heads nodding.
Not nodding for drawing from it, or
I think so. Yeah.
okay,
see.
shall we give it a few minutes? What would you like? 5 minutes? Maybe?
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Greg. We have to work.
Well, I don't know how you're finding this exercise and whether it actually teaches you anything about reflection. Is it frustrating if you finish it sooner, or would you prefer to have a bit more time on it? People are quiet. Does that mean they're probably concentrating? Why not?
Yeah, I think
We've
a lot
got
of
the
heads down.
time. Sorry?
Lots of heads down. I think people are still.
Okay, well, let's give it a bit more time then, because people want to maybe focus in a bit. Yeah?
Great.
That's all right with timing, isn't it? We've
Yeah.
got a bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we bring that to a close now, if that's okay. Obviously, you've got missing information here as well in terms of not having the top bit of the drawing, sorry, of the still life or whatever you want to call it. What's missing really is the upper part, so you've got to construct the mirror bit yourself. I just found it incredibly difficult to take photos of the setup because the mirror seemed to never to be in the right frame to take a photo of. But try it out, and the most important thing, of course, is to actually go outside when it's a nice day and it's not raining, and get your inks and your watercolors and your pencils and sit yourself on the bank of a river and just try and draw what you see, the essential lines, try and draw what you see. There's just a little bit more information, but maybe someone wants to share what they've drawn first. Anyone volunteering? Be interesting to see what you made out of that begonia thing. Wow, it does look like a reflection, which is amazing. You just did that by putting the horizon line in, didn't you?
Yeah,
Excellent.
took me a little while to figure out what I was drawing, but it was really fun.
Okay, that's good. Fun is
Yeah, I
always
really
good.
liked that exercise.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. Quinley? Lost you. You're just holding it. Oh, there we are. Well, that's
So
lovely.
I just drew the reflection. I decided not to draw the top part just to see whether I could capture the roots more distinctly.
Yeah,
And I'll also get the color of um
the leaf.
the vase that I think the vase was in.
Yeah, yeah. I understand because you didn't really have the information to do the top part. I didn't give you the information, so unless you set it up yourself, it's difficult, isn't it? I did exactly the same thing. I only drew the reflection because, well, the other information wasn't there, and I wasn't clever enough to construct it through logic. Wow, that's lovely too. A delicate little begonia.
Yeah, I just use a fine pen and a pencil.
Yeah.
Obviously, the watercolors, they look much more impressive when I do it, but
It's
yeah.
not all about impression, isn't it? And real patience there, which is nice to see. Anyone else? Oh, brilliant. Show us. Hold it a bit closer.
Sorry, unmuted.
Oh, that's very rhythmical, isn't it?
It's turned into a tangle
Tangle
as
is
I've
good.
tried to
I
get
like
spatial
tangle.
relationships more.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
nice. Searching for the line through the drawing process.
Uh, it,
And I think maybe that's what Ruskin means. Maybe it's okay to have these multiple lines because we're searching the correct one through it, don't we?
yeah,
Think.
well, yes.
Brilliant.
It took
Sorry.
me a moment to realize that, in fact, the leaves that you see are, so to speak, hanging up from the vase, which is downwards, if you see what I mean.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Mirror logic I didn't manage it at first. And I said, oh, I realized what was going on.
It is quite tricky to construct it. I think I wouldn't have been able to construct the proper, the non-mirrored, the real thing, just from the information I was giving you. It's a hard one, and Ruskin is very good with his reflections. He's worth checking. I've got a few examples of Ruskin, so I'm going to share again and finish off the PowerPoint. I don't think there's a lot more to go from what I remember. So this is just an attempt to set up another one with the mirror exercise. I was sort of trying to get overhanging tree feeling, but I wasn't very successful with that. And this was the wing mirror exercise. I actually sat in I think I sat in the driver's seat, actually, parked the car up and in an area near to where I live, where there was a real entanglement of youngish trees, and then there was a slightly more mature one, which sort of fought its way through the thicket. And I drew it from the mirror because otherwise I would have had to stand outside the car because I couldn't really turn around on my knees to see through the back window. It would have been very uncomfortable. So I kind of thought, oh, well, let's draw from the wing mirror. And I found it a really interesting experience. So I can recommend that if you are a car driver, try it out sometime. Or try it anywhere. I mean, try to draw from a mirror in an interior. Be interesting to see. So this is a bit more Ruskin. Disturbed water surfaces such as running river at speed or the waves of the sea are infinitely more difficult to get right. This is to do with motion and memory. Running water or tidal water does not stand still for us, so we need to memorize the leading lines of reflection. So this is my paraphrasing, really, what I think Ruskin has to say in Letter 2. So studying drawings by Turner and Ruskin on such topics, one can see that Turner economizes and simplifies, finding the dominant or leading lines he needs to simulate water surface and motion. The example I'm going to show you in a minute, in Solway Moss, he uses a shorthand for the calm water surface and a large expressive wash for the brooding cloud. By comparison, Ruskin spends time on detail in Morning in Spring with the northeast wind at Vevey. The surface of this water is slightly disturbed, speaking of a large lake with a more intimate and measured surface than the racing of a river or the rhythms of the sea. The patterns of the clouds mirror the patterns of the waves. It's a lot of information to retain, but this is a Turner. Solway Moss, just up the road, really, from where I live, I suppose, well, a fair bit further up, but nevertheless. So you can see, of course, we're attracted to the really big cloud, which he washes confidently. Typical Turner. He is always a good essentialist. He just throws the ink at this, or watercolor, black, whatever he's using, at the sky and creates this broody atmosphere. And the reflection of the water is very economic. You can see the tide is receding, I think. I would say that because of the little birds, and they tend to come at low tide rather than when the tide is coming back, because the high tide going down to low tide reveals all this food they can get. So I assume it's going out, the tide is going out backwards, so to say, to the sea. So we have very few reflection lines, really. We have a little bit of a mirror section just at the bottom, if you can see that. There's a two-master, which has a bit of a quick shady mirror, and then the three poles just in the foreground, just above the bit where it says Turner's pencil sketch. And you can see there's a perfect mirror reflection. So this must be a puddle because the water's keeping really still there, whereas where the two-master is, the water is not still because it's tidal. And so he creates this sense of atmosphere and accurate descriptions about what's going on with the different waters at this particular landscape, just with a few lines. It's just amazing. He was a true master, Turner. I love his sketchbooks, which are often so economic, often bringing things down just to a line or wash. This, by comparison, is a John Ruskin, which is a more carefully observed painting. And you can see he had a more complex water surface to deal with because there's a fair bit of motion there, wave motion. I don't know, Vivi. I don't know whether that's at the sea or whether this is a big lake. Whatever it is, if it's a lake, it has quite a bit of disturbing wind on it. I would say it's quite quite busy. But it is a good drawing to study wave motion from. It's really hard to do. I once tried it, actually, ironically, in Venice. I sat down at the quay and tried to draw the water motion of the sea. It's quite a challenge. He got that very right, very beautiful. And then you have that kind of mirror reflection again towards the horizon line. Well, not the horizon. What would you call that? Where the land starts, where embankment. You get a very clear mirror image of that, of the 3 or 4 trees, the poplars or whatever they are, and a little bit of a building which looks like a church. And then let alone the mountains and the clouds. And interestingly enough, the clouds kind of mirror the water a little bit in terms of the direction. I don't know whether that's a normal phenomenon in terms of meteorology, but it just struck me as interesting that that is the case. So there's mirroring all over in this painting. So lots we can learn just from studying these pieces. So I found a lovely photo my late partner did of a duck on calm water, and I thought we'd share that, and we could just spend 5 minutes copying the wave pattern. It's nice, isn't it? It was a totally calm water surface, and you can see there's some concentric rings, which might be because someone threw a stone in, or a fish maybe. And you've got this duck. There's 2 ducklings. I don't know whether you can see that. Little ducklings, very sweet. Perfect mirror image for duck mum. The ducklings are obviously too weaselly to create a perfect mirror image. And then the movement these ducks have created by hovercrafting over the surface of the water. I can see what's happened here. I can see the timeline. Ruskin talks about what happened. Duckling mother got disturbed, so they kind of tend to do this half walking on water, half flying, don't they, if you watch them. And the babies are really good. They're totally overcraft machines. They kind of just walk on water at enormous speed. So they must have been doing that. And so we have this beautiful pattern in the water, which they have created by having been disturbed. So if you want to, I think we've got the time, Simon, to do another 5 minutes, maybe? Do we?
Absolutely. People can obviously leave if they need to leave, but we're still within our 90 minutes. So yes.
I'm mindful some people joined very late, so it would be nice for them to have something
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So if
Great.
you want to just try and catch the pattern of the waves here, which are created by the ducks, that's maybe something to try out today. We'll run that for max 5 minutes, and then I think we're pretty much done. I would look at these exercises, study exercises, and not aim for finished drawings. Just working out how these patterns intersect with one another, and how you can create, maybe with a dry brushing technique, that lovely open texture. When I say dry brushing, I mean you load your pencil, so you brush up with ink, and you kind of walk it over the paper and then return it with the same, by just going back on yourself, if that makes any sense, you will create sort of a broken brush stroke, which kind of simulates a reflection of the water. So these are kind of like, yeah, technical exercises perhaps, rather than anything major. Right, I suppose we should come to a close with this now. So just to finish off the PowerPoint then, to conclude, the second letter introduces us to observe nature in its own setting. No longer confined to the studio, we need to learn to observe and interpret the plenitude of information available. This is achieved by learning to grasp the vital lines or dominant lines speaking of the character or what is to be observed. Tree, cloud, lake, or river all have their own histories and destinations, and our selection needs to recognize this. These are what Ruskin refers to as the great laws of growth and action. Individual detail is paramount in understanding these laws. Ruskin warns us against habits, working towards a formula. To reproduce some of the mystery of nature, we need to learn to see, to understand the history of the site or object, and to reimagine. And he refers to the law of mystery, which was the topic of my first PowerPoint with the Guild. And so to conclude fully now with Ruskin, nothing is ever seen perfectly, but only by fragments. And under various conditions of obscurity, this last fact renders the visible objects of nature complete as a type of the human nature. We have observed first subordination, secondly individuality, lastly, and this is not the least essential character, incomprehensibility, a perpetual lesson in every serrated point and shining vein, which escapes or deceives our sight among the forest of leaves, how little we may hope to discern clearly or judge justly the rents and veins of the human heart. How much of all that is around us in men's actions or spirits, which we at first think we understand, a closer and more loving watchfulness would show to be full of mystery, never to be either fathomed or withdrawn. Now, this is quite mysterious. He kind of makes these constant cross sections between human nature and nature. It's quite dense. I don't think I fully understood it, but I think I know what he's trying to get at. About understanding also what he says about the history and the future of natural aspects like a mountain or a tree. We can apply that, of course, to humans. And those of you who like life drawing will understand that how much is actually set in a pose and in the skins and in the habit of a human being after lifetimes of heavy lifting or certain things they might have done as part of the job, how that imprints itself on their nature and their habit. So I can see how you can cross-connect from what he sees in nature, you can see in your fellow human being. Right, sermon over.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Doris, thank you so much. It's been an absolutely fascinating. I've really sort of felt the energy, even though everybody's quietly getting on with it, that the way in which you've brought our focus in and then shown with such beautiful, clear way what we might do and keeping us to time and moving us on. Thank you, really. It's been an incredibly rich session. Very, very grateful.
Simon. Thank you for hosting it. Is there time for a quick stock take of water? Does anyone want to show quickly any water surfaces? Quinley?
Anybody fancy sharing what they've drawn?
Yeah, can't see that.
Okay, I'll do Quinley first, just because it's the first one that appeared on my screen.
Excellent.
Hang on, spotlight for everyone. There we are.
Can see it much better now. Thank you,
Tried
Simon.
to get the movement of the water. It felt almost like drawing fabric.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a good point, actually. The folds in a garment, especially if it's a shiny garment, which, of course, Ruskin says, do not draw anything which is shiny, so
Yeah.
But yeah, reflection. Lovely, very delicate.
Then D. Kelly. Here we are.
Oh, wow.
Deirdre, hello.
Okay,
Wow.
can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's it. And reflect. Thank you very much.
I can see the duck. I can see, yeah, that really works, doesn't it? Wave.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, yeah. And Wendy.
Oh, wow, yeah. I was looking at it, I was drawing while you were drawing, and I thought they kind of cross-sect the waves, don't they? There's this kind of parallel pattern, and the cross-sect is quite wonderful.
I didn't attempt the ducks.
So, Sarah.
Someone did attempt the ducks there. So lovely.
I like the ducks.
That's great.
They were my favorite.
You got the waves fine as well. It's great.
And I got caught up in detail, which I always do. I start trying to add too much detail rather than pare it back. But
I think it's wonderful. It's really nice. The colors are lovely too.
And then Paul. Oh, hang on.
You see
Yeah, there we go.
that?
Yeah.
I'm afraid the scientist kicked in. I started to recognize different kinds of turbulence. Right behind the group of ducks, there's an area of choppy, turbulent water,
Right.
which is their feet working.
Oh, yeah,
And
that
then
makes
and then
sense.
the ripples are driven bow waves, and they've. Okay, so if that's Ruskin,
Well, it's certainly
too
well
much mechanic. Excuse me.
done.
Thank you very much, Doris. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. Thanks everyone, yeah, for doing the workshop, and I hope you had a bit of fun. And yeah, great. Thanks for having me. All right.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the 2nd of May for the final session with Julian Perry, artist. Hope you can join us same time. I sent all the details out this week, but I'll do another reminder to everybody
I have to
just
admit,
before.
I'm slightly confused by the instructions for the next one
Ah,
around the sort of the polishing thing that we're
of the
meant
paper.
to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Well, let me.
Charcoal, isn't it?
Yes, let me see if
Yeah.
I can get some clarity from or further explanation from Julian and include it in the notes.
Or even if there's like a YouTube video or something we can look at that shows this is what he means when he's talking about laying it down and then polishing it off or
Uh,
something.
okay. All right. Yep. No, good.
Thanks.
I'll check it out. All right. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay, thank you.